On April 20th, 2010, the Deepwater Horizon disaster changed the lives of millions living near the Gulf of Mexico, as well as the scientists who responded to the crisis. These are some of their stories, intimate portraits of research, innovation, discovery. Welcome, I'm Jim McNamee, editor of Dispatches from the Gulf, a series of documentaries, short videos, and podcasts. In today's podcast, we'll hear from Tony Amos, a unique voice in the story of the Gulf's health. Tony has been walking the beaches of Mustang Island every other day for nearly 40 years, recording data about the species and human disruption that he sees. This work led Amos to start the Animal Rehabilitation Keep, an organization that rehabilitates and re-releases injured animals found on the nearby beaches.
My name is Tony Amos. I'm a research fellow here at the University of Texas Marine Science Institute. I also am the director of the Animal Rehabilitation Keep, commonly known as the ARC. So it might have been as far back as when I was evacuated to the countryside in England during World War II as a kid and saw wildlife and nature there, or the Boys' Own exhibition, and the Festival of Britain in 1951. All of those were events that really was able to give me an interest in science and the natural sciences in particular. I started out as a marine technician, and I was lucky enough to be put in charge of what was then a revolutionary instrument called and don't laugh at this, the STD. We didn't giggle then because it was salinity, temperature, depth. And this was an electronic machine that you could lower from the surface to the bottom of the ocean and get the details of the physics of the changes in temperature and salinity and other characteristics for the first time. In going to sea and in observing the land around me, I've always been fascinated by change, long-term change, because even 40 years ago there was talk about they didn't call it global warming, but climate change. And when I came to Texas, I decided that I would look at the beaches here and do a long-term study. I didn't know how long it was going to be, but now it's in its 37th year. And so what I do is, I do this every other day, is to count the number of birds that I see in a 7-mile stretch of beach. And because I'm interested in human disturbance and other disturbances, I also count people and cars, which are allowed on Texas beaches. So I've counted cars, dogs, people, birds. The birds as the focus of the thing, and then also measured the sea temperature in the same accurate way that I did when I was going to sea temperature and salinity. And I have seen changes. So I've seen, for example, the red knot, which is one of the world's most incredible long-distance migrants, essentially disappear from my beach. I've seen the Wilson's plover, another small bird that is considered to be threatened now. I've seen that literally go. I just don't see them any longer. I've seen others on the positive side increase. For example, the brown pelican, which was affected by DDT, and when DDT was ultimately outlawed, the population came back. There were probably the years of 78 through 80, I didn't see a single brown pelican on the beach, and now I sometimes see beautiful flocks of 200 or 300 passing by in a graceful way almost every day. So there's the good, the bad, and the ugly. The ugly being the amount of marine debris, garbage I see on the beach. I've made a point of measuring that. In fact, I became fairly well known as a sort of a garbologist, and I've sat on 2 committees for the National Academy of Sciences to look at the problem of marine debris. I think it's really important to have such a long-term and hopefully accurately regarded piece of information to compare. I would hope that people in 100 years from now might look at my data and use it as some baseline.
Tony's decades of watching changes on Mustang Beach and the surrounding areas have given him a deep appreciation for the power of scientific observation.
It's imperative that we understand our environment, and we understand it by proper methods of scientific research and analysis. Every era that I've been in, every decade, we think we're in the era of new innovations with satellite technology and so on. But what's happening now is we have the ability through the internet and social, what they call social media, to utilize that amazing ability to communicate almost instantaneously. 50 years ago, when you wanted to know about an earthquake or an oil spill or something that happened, you actually could sign up and get telegrams sent by Western Union that were telling you what's happening. Now we can get that information right away. Science, however, still has its fundamental ways of doing things, but it is innovation now that we can expand that knowledge to really make us understand that question that you asked, do you see any changes? With my eyeballs, I don't see any changes, but by proper methods of science, we certainly can.
Throughout Tony's long career, he's worked in some wild places and had many moments of wonder and discovery.
The sea is an unforgiving place, and I've worked in some of the roughest seas in the world. I have installed remote weather stations on several islands in the Antarctic, a couple of which are still going today. And in one of the installations I discovered, of course I wasn't the first person to discover it, we were talking about the Antarctic, an island covered in snow and ice, and there I found some little tiny spiders and other arachnids that were somehow living in this incredible environment. And that to me was a real moment of discovery. I mean, I knew such things existed, but to actually see these little tiny animals living in far below freezing was one of those moments.
Today, thousands of scientists, oceanographers, chemists, engineers, biologists are all working together to develop newer and better ways to understand and ease the impact of oil spills. To learn more about their work, visit our webpage at dispatchesfromthegulf.com. Funding for this podcast was provided by a grant by the Gulf of Mexico Research Initiative. And thanks for listening.